Mr. President, this huge aid package to Puerto Rico, why not a year ago? Why not 2 years ago? Why not 3 years ago? Why 46 days to the election?
Because what we're doing is we've been working on it for a long time to get it passed. Very tough to get things past Democrats where they don't want to see this happen. And they certainly didn't want to see it happen at this point. But it's a big package. It's a great package. And I think the most exciting part of the package isn't necessarily the billions of dollars. It's going to be what we do with the pharmaceutical industry. We're going to get them back into Puerto Rico. They liked being there, but they changed the tax situation. They ripped it out. So they really ripped apart the island, and we're going to bring it back, John.
It may be simply coincidental, but it does coincide with the big push for Puerto Rican voters that the Biden-Harris campaign.
Yeah, I think that's well, they can't do anything. Look, the Biden-Harris campaign, what they did, they hurt. I've gone through it, and whether it was President Obama or Vice President Biden, they were a disaster for Puerto Rico, a disaster. And what we're doing and what we've done, but what we're doing is something that will be fantastic for many years in the future.
Mr. President, a question on the vaccine, but first on Puerto Rico. I heard you many times over the past couple of years saying that Puerto Rico got too much money. I mean, just last year you said Puerto Rico is one of the most corrupt places on earth.
Well,
you talked about how Congress had sent
too much
money. But you said never again. You said Congress gave too much money to Puerto Rico. Why now?
Because we're building it up as a great medical, pharmaceutical manufacturing area where, we're going to be taking back a lot of the business that we let go for years. And we're going to bring it back. They were very good at it. They did a fantastic job, but they destroyed it with their tax policy. They made it impossible for people to stay, so people went to China mostly and to other countries. Puerto Rico has been very corrupt in terms of its politicians. You see that. They're one after another. It's been unbelievably corrupt. And we're studying that and working on that. And we think we have a good group of people who are working very well with the politicians right now. But I think more exciting than the dollars, and you have to do something with respect to their grid. Their grid is a disaster. Their generators are wiped out, and they've been wiped out for years, long before Maria came. They've been wiped out for years. So if we can build Puerto Rico back into a pharmaceutical manufacturing area, we're going to designate it as such. I think it'll be unbelievable for Puerto Rico, unbelievable for the people of Puerto Rico, and we can make it very successful.
If you could find a more obvious, transparent example of pandering, I'd love to see it. Because here we have Donald Trump, 45 days before the election, suddenly deciding that not only does he love Puerto Rico, but he's now announced that he's offering $13 billion in aid to the island, which is a timely little payment to repair damage from Hurricane Maria from 2017, 3 years ago. So that we don't waste another second without stating the obvious, the reason is because Joe Biden has strongly focused on winning over Florida's sizable Puerto Rican population, which makes up 17% of Florida's electorate. Biden's campaign has made ad buys, new hires, and even did an in-person visit on Tuesday in the Sunshine State, and polling is faring better and better for Democrats' chances at winning this electorate in November. And so, of course, enter Trump for his Oscar-worthy performance trying to pretend that, you know what? In fact, he loves Puerto Ricans, and in order to appeal to them, here's $13 billion for a storm that happened 3 years ago. Yeah, no, that all seems very genuine. In reality, Trump has displayed nothing but oozing contempt for Puerto Rico since the day he took office. Right after Hurricane Maria hit the island, you might remember that Trump's solution was to do his part by lobbing paper towels at people, which I can only assume he thought was more than enough, because he then went on a months-long tirade complaining that relief aid had been given to the island. For example, he tweeted, "Puerto Rico has been given more money by Congress for hurricane disaster relief, $91 billion, than any state in the history of the US. As an example, Florida got $12 billion and Texas got $39 billion for their monster hurricanes." Now the Democrats are saying no relief to Alabama, Iowa, Nebraska, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and others unless much more money is given to Puerto Rico. The Dems don't want farmers to get any help. Puerto Rico should be very happy, and the Dems should stop blocking much needed disaster relief. There's also the fact that Trump threatened to veto a $4.7 billion emergency aid package to Puerto Rico after a series of earthquakes while the island was still rebuilding after the hurricane. And not to be outdone, according to former DHS Chief of Staff Miles Taylor, Trump actually suggested swapping Puerto Rico for Greenland in 2018 because he said Puerto Ricans were, quote, dirty.
I remember before we went, the president said something, and your viewers are going to be somewhat familiar with this. The president's talked before about wanting to purchase Greenland. But one time before we went down, he told us not only did he want to purchase Greenland, he actually said he wanted to see if we could sell Puerto Rico. Could we swap Puerto Rico for Greenland? Because in his words, Puerto Rico was dirty and the people were poor.
So when Donald Trump says that he's, quote, the best thing that ever happened to Puerto Rico, he might want to take that up with Donald Trump. But the most absurd part of all of this is that when he was asked why he waited so long to deliver aid to Puerto Rico, Trump says because it took a long time to get ready. Right. Just your standard 3-year waiting period before an aid package is finally put together, coincidentally only 45 days before an election where it just so happens that Puerto Ricans in Florida have become a must-win electorate. But sure, I guess they were just going over the fine print. Or something. So Trump might shamelessly pander to Puerto Ricans now that he suddenly realizes he needs their votes, but this should tell that community, and Americans more broadly, that everything he does is transactional, that he doesn't care about you unless he needs something from you, and that the moment you're of no use to him, he'll go back to pretending that you don't exist. That is who Donald Trump is, and he showed it on countless occasions. While you're here, please subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I take a deeper dive into the week's biggest stories and interview major players in the world of politics, like Kamala Harris, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, Nancy Pelosi, Cory Booker, Eric Swalwell, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.